If someone had told me 10 years ago that I'd be training seriously, talking about MS and into a microphone.
It'd be talking about MS. I probably wouldn't have even known what MS was, let alone training. If you told me you'd be training, I'd be like, for what, like a new job? Not for a freaking bike ride, a Fondo in May, right? Oh, this is quite the journey for sure.
Yeah, it is. And yet here we are.
I'm David.
And I'm Justine.
We're two athletes living with MS
And this podcast is about the real stories of coming back to sport.
or starting fresh after illness, injury, or a diagnosis with long-term challenges.
It's about learning how to return on your own terms. This is Adaptive Limits.
I think people need to understand our journeys, how we got here. So, do you want to talk about how you were diagnosed, what you were doing before your diagnosis? What's your story?
Yeah, sure. So I woke up one day, October 15th, 2015, and I felt this numbness on my stomach and going down my right leg. And that's weird. What is that? And it felt like I was injected with Novocaine, that kind of sensation of just like total numbness. And then things went from there. Fatigue, bladder issues, different lots of problems. So then
To say the
like
least, right?
my whole right side basically went numb. So just getting around, like getting to the subway to take the train to work was like that was so hard. And like I was that person on the subway that was like, "Can I have your seat, please?" Uh,
Yeah. And you
so
lived in New York,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I did. I did.
Wow.
But it's the you don't look sick, right? We'll get into that, I'm sure. Yeah. So I went to the doctor, and initially it was like I was diagnosed as having low vitamin D and sent away. But then,
Yeah.
like, things continued to get worse, and I started having like balance issues and like coordination kind of issues, like tripping and falling often. And so I went back to someone, and she was, "Okay, we can do this and this, and we'll check for this. And, maybe MS." And that was all she said. And I had heard MS before, but she just said maybe MS, as well as she was talking about a bunch of other stuff. But that stuck in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Maybe MS? What is this? Because I had heard of it, but I didn't really know anything about it. So that was in the back of my head, and then we went forward, and then I got MRIs and and then
Sure.
she called me and gave me the news, and yeah,
Your world changed,
my world
right?
changed. Yeah. The only reason I knew about MS was reading this like a really famous ultra runner named Scott Jurek has a book called Eat and Run. And so his mom actually has MS or had MS. And so he talks about what that was like growing up and his childhood. And it's just really loving. He talks about it in a really loving way. And so my introduction to multiple sclerosis was through ultra running, which I then later got really even more into.
Funny how that works, right? And so
Yeah.
you were
So
in
weird.
you were in New York. Like, how old were you? What were you doing at that
Yeah.
time? Were you athletic or were you studying? What were you
Yeah.
doing?
I was 29 and I was training for the New York City Marathon.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Which by the way, I did run like 2 years later. I got in the raffle, I got in again. And so I actually did go run and I finished it. And I finished it with a woman who was running because her brother, I think her brother for his MS, like she was running. I think
The
her name was
connections, man.
Karen.
There's so
Yeah.
so many layers
So
that
many
like once you
layers.
get
Yeah,
diagnosed in this club,
I
right?
know.
Like you start to find people that are connected to it.
Yeah,
It's
you're
wild.
randomly
It's
like
wild.
doing your like comeback run of like, and you find them.
Right?
So yeah, I was training for that, and then I was working on a PhD. And so I was mostly in school, but I was also teaching classes, and I was working in data analysis for a professor's work. It
But
was
was it super stressful? Do you feel like stress had anything to do with this relapse or anything like that?
uh no, well, I mean, No, I don't think so. It was stressful, like, getting because working on a PhD just is stressful, but I don't know what triggered it. It was very just all of a sudden. But, like, how about you? Do you have an idea? Like, what's your story?
So I moved up to Portland, right, from the Bay Area. And I had lived in the Bay Area for 40 plus years. And we picked up and left and moved up here through COVID. We didn't know COVID was going to happen. So that was a whole stressful, scenario. But I remember my wife went through some health stuff and that was really stressful. I was dealing with a stressful job. And then I found my dream gig, this job that I loved in like August of 21. And then it was just a couple of months later, I woke up and I had this little tingling on the tip of my tongue. And I remember thinking, am I having an allergic reaction? Did I burn my tongue on like the salmon I ate the night before? What's going on? So it was weird. And I just remember going to the doctor and they're just, I don't know. It was COVID, right? So getting an appointment was hard. And they're like, it could be shingles or it could be this or it could be that. So they're just kind of blowing me off. But meanwhile, that little tingling on my tongue turned into half of my tongue, and then it turned into half of my head, and then it turned into balance issues, sensory issues, blurry vision. Showers were
Wow.
horrible because of the heat. And meanwhile, I had gone to the ER twice and they were telling me everything under the sun. It was Bell's palsy, it was shingles. I had one doctor come in, literally look at me for 5 seconds, and he's like, you have Bell's palsy. And so take some steroids for 3 days and you'll be fine.
Right.
Meanwhile, most people who go through Bell's palsy, usually you have a facial droop on like one side. So I'm sitting on my couch taking selfies of myself and trying to measure if one side's lower than the other because this doesn't sound right. And I remember everything when I kept Googling my symptoms, everything kept coming to Bell's palsy, which I didn't think I had, or MS, which I didn't know much about. I grew up with a neighbor who had it and she had some other health issues, but that's the only kind of thing I knew about MS. And I remember going to the doctor and telling him specifically, "Do you think this could be MS?" And he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, no, no, no. You're in your 40s and you're a male. It impacts women in their 30s. It's not MS." But it impacts all shapes and sizes and ages, right? And so
Mhm.
finally 3 weeks later, things are getting worse and I'm finally like, "Dude, get me an MRI. I don't know, you have to advocate for yourself." And
Um,
so finally he did. I saw a neurologist. He's like, well, I'm going to go by Bell's palsy because I have to imagine the ER doctor saw something I don't see now. I'd be surprised if it was MS. And then literally went in to do an MRI, and an hour after my MRI, December 2nd, it was like 4:20, I think it was. I know exactly where I was. Isn't it funny how
oh,
when you have
yeah.
MS, you know the date, you know the time, you know where you were?
I
And
took
he's
a
like, "You
picture
have
of
MS."
myself. He said that, yeah.
Did you really? Did you
Like,
really?
right afterwards, I
Ah,
was on the subway, and so I have the date because I was like, "I can't forget this date, like, I need to remember this." But
wow.
sorry, so
That
continue.
is that's epic that
The
you have
picture.
that picture
Yeah.
and it's with you, right?
Yeah, and
I think
it's
it's
like, I'm
important to
not
have.
smiling for sure,
Yeah,
but
oh, I
it's
bet.
I mean, it's the confounded, like, just the
Yeah,
frightened, confounded, and just don't know where to go, who to talk to, what to do. It's like,
right?
I feel when I was diagnosed, it was like it felt like I was wandering. That was my emotional state, was wandering.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
so how did you react? Would you say you were curling into a ball in the corner, or were you like, screw this, I'm gonna go, let's go, right? How did you react to the diagnosis?
So I was reading something that I had written a long time ago, and I think the first few weeks were really hard. And I wasn't eating or sleeping.
Wow.
I was just wandering around my own life, like, and then I was like, no, this is not going to be that, like, this is not the way it ends. This is not going to be the way my life is from now on. My life is filled with a lot of things that take movement, and I want that in my life. And so I was, yeah, definitely had a very big no, just trying not to swear.
Yeah, right? How did you were you afraid of, like, losing, like, your mobility or, like, were you what were you
Yeah.
afraid of the most?
Yeah, I was really scared of not being able to walk and not being able to run anymore because for me, running is a part of who I am. It's a part of
Yeah,
my identity. It's really core. It's been a long time and like I just couldn't see who is Justine without that. Just wasn't
right.
it didn't make any sense. So I was like, I have to keep this for her. This can't
Yeah.
be the end of running for me. And so
And would you say that was what you quietly refused to give up too, was your, "Hey, I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep moving."
yeah, definitely. The quiet quiet refusal. Yeah, just to it wasn't so quiet
Right?
if you know me, but yeah. Uh it was very defiant, we will say. I defiantly refused to give up running because it's what I do. Um, and there wasn't an option for me. Like I was going to regain my mobility and I was going to run again. And that I think we should talk more about this, but that was one thing that kept me going and got me through was the belief in myself that I am going to run again. The belief was just that it's gonna happen. There
Yeah.
wasn't a question mark in my brain. There was just this is happening. It's like you learn to work around it. You learn to adapt. And so, yeah, the like, yeah, that was the point I got to.
I think for me, what I was so scared of losing was just my overall identity because I had grown up, I was the punk rock kid and like goth kid and like not the kid with that, with MS. And so I just didn't know what my identity was. And I remember 4 months after my diagnosis, I got asked to be a keynote speaker at Walk MS here in Portland. And I think it's because a ton of people had gotten sick because it was after COVID and all their speakers had gotten sick and couldn't make it. And I all of a sudden started fundraising. So would you like to come and talk as a newly diagnosed? And my gut reaction was to be like, no, don't want to do it. But I was like, that, you know what? I got to flip the script and I got to do things a little differently. So I will do it. And in my speech, I remember talking about how I didn't understand the saying MS doesn't define me because I was like, how does it not define me? It's a big part of my life. It's everything I'm living and breathing right now. Of course it defines me.
Yeah.
And now that I'm, going on like 5 years into this, I was like, hell no, it doesn't define me. It's a piece of me, right?
Yeah.
And it's like this Venn diagram. It's there, but it's not the only thing. And I think that's
Right.
where it's so cool because I wasn't an athlete before my diagnosis, and I am one now. So in some ways, if it wasn't for MS, would I be riding the bike right now as much as I am? Would I be monitoring my sleep or my caloric intake or
Right.
my heart rate,
Totally. I mean,
right?
the same thing goes for me. I wasn't as into running as I am now. So it's, yeah, definitely it was life changing, but we can look at the good things it has brought into our lives as well. Definitely. Yeah.
So once you got diagnosed, I'd be curious because I know what it was like for me, but it could be pretty overwhelming in today's day and age, right? Because social media and people you don't know with MS that you've never met and you've never been friends with, but all of a sudden you're listening to them and listening to their symptoms. How was that for you?
So when I was first diagnosed, I got online on Instagram right away because I was wanting to find out more information and find other people who have this. And that was an easy way to do it, especially being as fatigued as I was. And I was not about to go to a meetup for people who are newly diagnosed with autoimmune condition. So
Right?
I got on there. And then I really feel like I wanted to see someone I wanted proof that I didn't have to quit running, that I wasn't gonna be a I can't. I wanted to see, yeah, that endurance and that being physical and movement was still a possibility for people who have MS, and not everyone, of course, but I wanted to just see, is it possible? And I felt like, and maybe you felt this too, like it felt like a lot of the things I saw were very medical and pretty negative sometimes,
Yeah.
like very like fear focused in a not
Yeah.
healthy way.
Yeah, and I think on some level there might be a lot of engagement with that type of material because people are searching for that. And when they see it, it's someone speaking to them and they want
Yeah.
to be able to connect with somebody who's also struggling with the same MS symptoms that they're struggling with. And so I remember it was just I was terrified. I was terrified of what I was seeing on social media. And then I was starting to self-diagnose myself with things like, you know what? So and so is talking about they're getting an MS hug. Am I getting an MS hug?
Uh,
Or, they're feeling this. Am I feeling this? And like, you talk to my doctor, like, that doesn't sound like what's going on. It sounds like maybe this is what's going on.
yeah,
And it's just so funny how your brain starts to go towards what it sees in
right.
social media.
Sorry, I totally got the MS hug. That was really intense from the beginning, and for a lot of years, I struggled with that, but it seems to have calmed down. Maybe it's getting stronger, I don't know, but yeah, oh god, the MS hug, it was so obnoxious.
I was just self-diagnosing myself with stuff that I don't think
Yeah,
I was having. People do need it. There are some folks that are really struggling
yeah,
and they need that. But
right,
I always say something and I feel really weird saying it, which is, would I, if I was given the choice, would I take having MS again?
yeah,
Absolutely not, right? Of course not. I'd be crazy to say that I would.
right,
But have there been silver linings? Absolutely.
yeah,
Has it opened up some things that I would have never done? Things I've done with what I put in my body, the way I treat my body, the authenticity. I am who I am and you're gonna get me.
yeah.
And if I'm not for you, that's totally okay. But I used to try and be what I thought other people wanted me to be, and life's too short for that now. I thought authenticity was big for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell me a little bit about how you have found, athletic or endurance content with
mhm,
someone living with MS or
yeah.
finding others that, have taken on health and fitness and endurance. Tell me a little bit about your journey of finding folks with this, in social media.
Well, it was hard finding people with MS who are endurance athletes or who are athletic. That was really hard, and like that was really what that difficulty made me decide that maybe I needed to be that, you know. I the thing was it was so hard for me when I was diagnosed, and then sitting and thinking about how hard that is for someone else, that broke my heart. Like,
Yeah.
I just, like sorry, yeah, I'm getting choked up.
No.
The idea of somebody being, like, alone and, like, dealing with their diagnosis, like, and
Right.
I was, like, in New York by myself, so, like, I didn't have, like, family around, and so it's like, the idea that someone else would have to go through this by themselves and, like, that someone else would not hear themselves, like, not be able to find themselves, you know, to or something to relate to, you know? I just that made me so sad, and so I was like, "You know what? I love running, and I'm not gonna not run," and, like, I feel like if this is something I want, if I want to see someone doing these things like running and cycling with MS, if I want to see that and I'm going through this alone and it's really hard, then I know that that other person going through it and it being really hard, they're going to want to find that too. So that was kind of where I ended up, how I ended up at Run with
Yeah.
MS.
That's awesome. And I know From what I've gathered and like the profiles that I've found, you don't see a lot of the return to sport
No.
after your diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's this badass with MS who's a Paralympian, or this really rad person who's a cyclist with MS. But I haven't found the person that was like, I have MS and this has been my journey to
Right.
get back to movement, right?
Right.
And would you say your profile is kind of like that if you go back far enough?
I think so. Journey for me was, well, it was deciding I'm running, this is happening, and going and doing that. And then I signed up for the New York City Marathon again, and it
Yeah,
was like the next year or 2 years later, and I got to do it. I think maybe I deferred. And so I signed up and I got in and I finished it and it was my first marathon. It was the farthest I had run at that point. And I hadn't started doing ultras yet. So yeah, it was just like, yeah. And it
what?
was so redemption because it was the race I was doing when I came down with MS. So it was like
Yeah.
finishing something that I like not it was like say being able to say like MS is not going to stop me from accomplishing this goal. Like this
Yeah.
is happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess for me, it was a little bit different because I got diagnosed, and I'd say for like the next year or two, I continued to live my life like I had for the previous 40 years, right? Like I was drinking too much, I wasn't eating very well, I wasn't really exercising. And one of the things that I was dealing with in my life was my dad, who's no longer, with us, had dementia. So caring for him and watching the like cognitive decline was really hard because my main symptoms thus far, although I have had some mobility issues with balance and tingling in my legs, I would say the heart of my symptoms are cognitive, memory, brain fog, stimulation, that kind of stuff. But my dad passed away, and down at his funeral, I remember feeling the worst I had ever felt. I had to get a new suit because my suit didn't fit anymore. And I just was like puffy and inflamed. And I remember flying back from the Bay Area, and we had a Peloton bike in the garage that I rode from time to time. And to be honest, ironically, I didn't like riding it. I was like, "Oh, I don't like the bike." And and then I told my wife, I was like, "Let's get a row." And so we got a row, and I really enjoyed it. And for anyone who has MS and is looking for a simple way to move, I think rowing is
Yeah,
great
that's
because
smart.
for s for somebody with like brain
Yeah.
cognitive challenges, the repetition of like legs, body, arms at your
Yeah.
own pace, at your own
And the
resistance,
risk
it's
of like
really like
injury, like trip, fall,
you don't
all that.
you're
No.
not gonna fall. It
Yeah.
was really, really good, and I got the taste of it, and I really, really liked it. And then I think it was someone at the MS Society told me, "Oh, you should do Bike MS," because up until that point, I had only done walks, and I was, I don't wanna do a bike. I don't have a bike. It's gonna cost money." And like, "Oh, you should reach out to this organization called Meat Fight, and they select people with MS to get a free bike, and all you got to do is fundraise a few $100 and then you join Bike MS. And I was like, okay, what the heck, I'll try it. And I remember submitting an application, and on their questionnaire they asked, how many miles would you want to complete? And I knew nothing about riding the bike, and I was like, I don't know, like 20. And I do 20 now, like on a lunch hour,
Yeah.
right? And they shot back and they were like, "Oh, we'd like you to see like strive for a little
Right.
bit more than that." Like, and so instead of just saying, "Well, what about 30 or 40?" I was like, "All right, I'm gonna do the hundo. I'm gonna do the century ride." And they're like, "All right, sounds good." And so
Ah,
they gave me a free state gravel bike, which was a really nice bike.
yeah.
And I remember telling my wife, "Look at all the money we're saving. It's a free bike, and all I gotta do is fundraise a few $100." And then I went and I did that first century ride, and it wasn't without its challenges. I had some mechanical issues. I took a wrong turn on one of the routes, but I ended with 101 miles, and I remember thinking just how amazing I felt to have been diagnosed with MS a few years earlier, not having been active before that and completing 100 miles, which I never in a million years would have thought I could do. And that was where I got bitten, right? And I was
Yeah.
totally addicted and I haven't looked back. And I think it was the next day I bought a new bike. And then after this century ride, I bought another bike. So like all that money I told my wife that we were saving, it's all out the window because I've totally bought new bikes and I've already bookmarked other bikes
Oh
that
my
I want
gosh.
to.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
but yeah, that's been kind of the journey for me. You never were doing this before, now you're doing it after. But I'd be interested to get your take on this because part of me does it in a way because I also think movement, and it doesn't have to be 100 miles, right? It could be 1 mile, it could be half a mile, but I feel it's a key to longevity
Yeah.
and keeping the disease at bay. But I think what's kind of driven me too is after my diagnosis, you almost feel like you're up against this ticking time bomb. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm up against it and I have a time bomb and I don't know
Yeah.
when it's gonna go off. And I need to do this now. I need to be in shape. I need to exercise. I need to move. And in some ways, it's great because it keeps driving me towards continuing to do it. But where I fall sometimes is it doesn't always look like how I envision in my head.
Mhm.
And then I beat myself up
Yeah.
when things don't go according to plan. How's that been for you? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think from early on, I was any movement is the movement. Like it's whatever I can do today is that's my movement. I started out just walking and like doing loops on a track and it was just that was how far I could go that day. So I basically think any distance is that's great. Like that's what you could do today. And that's for me and for anyone else, like that's always what I will have to say is you went out and you gave it your best try and that's great. I just encourage people to try like try to do like a loop course as a way of getting back into running or cycling or anything else because if
hmm
you loop you get to stop at your car and your car is where you have food and water and like any medical needs and if I
yeah,
trip and fall and skin my knee badly, there are band-aids there.
yeah,
There are sanitary wipes. But also the car can take me home. So great. That's when like you're ready to call it a day, like you can hit the road and no problem. If you feel like doing one more loop before you do go home, maybe that's what you do today. And that's great too. So I think that's
yeah.
kind of the
You
approach I
mentioned
took.
that loop
I do it a
idea.
lot.
We did a Dirty Free Hub webinar, and you mentioned it, and I
Yeah.
had never thought of it. And for anyone who's in the Portland area, and I know not everyone who will be listening to this is,
Mhm.
but there's the Banks Vernonia Trail, which is great. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's the perfect spot because like you can park right in the middle, go up,
Right.
come down, you can go down again and then
Right.
come back up.
Yeah.
And you can have food, you can have, a cooling vest if you need it. You can have all that
Yeah.
stuff, which is really great. One thing I really admire about you is your ability to roll with the punches. It doesn't always go according to plan, but you're always super positive about it. How do you maintain that mindset? Do you talk yourself through it? What do you do?
Well, I always go into things trying to be well prepared so that when I can pivot when problems do arise. So I have sanitary wipes because if I have to go to the bathroom, like that it needs to be taken care of. Making sure I have things that are cooling equipment, bringing extra water, electrolytes, bringing the right nutrition for that I know I need for that ride or that run. And also, downloading the map before so that it is
Right?
available when I don't have service. Being really prepared, that gives me a certain level of confidence going in. And
hmm
then that confidence is like, that's, I think, where the positivity comes from. Just feeling like, yeah, I got this. Like, let's
Yeah.
go. Movement is just a really beautiful, amazing thing. And like this podcast is for anybody who like has a chronic condition, a long-term condition challenge of any nature. and wants to get back into movement or wants to start something new, like who wasn't an athlete before, like David, and who wants to get into that and ride 100 miles or ride 10 miles. Either way,
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
we just really want to become a space for people to to feel supported in that effort.
It's to feel supportive and to like maybe think it's okay and know it's okay to get out of your comfort zone and to know that you might start and you might not know what the heck you're doing, and that's okay. And it might look a little different, like you said, like, yeah, I'm training to do 100 miles. Maybe your goal is to do 10. Maybe your goal is to do 10 on an e-assist bike. Like, that's all great. Like, that's all
Right.
movement. And I'm hoping that folks who maybe are athletes living with MS will be gravitated to our conversations. But I'm also hoping folks that are like me that weren't an athlete
Yeah.
before and but want to be and are striving to be will use this as motivation to get out and move as well.
What I hope this podcast can accomplish is a space
Yeah.
for athletes and non athletes with long term medical conditions and challenges. Like some of us might be elite and some of us are not. And some of us have autoimmune conditions and maybe others don't. Maybe your long term challenge is very different, like a cancer diagnosis. And some of us love running, like me, and some of us
Hmm.
don't. Some of us really hate it.
Like
um,
me.
and that's okay too. I hope this podcast can be something that like it helps people feel heard and your experience is shared and you aren't alone and you are not going through this diagnosis alone because we're here. And uh yeah.
I love it. I'm so honored
Uh,
that we have become bros, Justine. Like
yeah.
I don't know, like you're one of those silver linings, right? Like if we both didn't have MS, I don't know that
Oh
we'd know
yeah.
each other. And you're my bro, man.
And, we're planning to have, there will be more episodes like this that will be just David and I just hanging out and sharing stories like this.
Chatting.
But we hope to have on people like people who are clinicians, people like physical therapists who work with people with chronic conditions, coaches who coach those individuals, like family members, caregivers. I think it would be great to have Karen on here and we can talk about
Oh
what
yeah.
that was like for the two of you.
Maybe you can talk her into letting me get another bike, Justine. Like,
Okay. I'll work on it. But yeah, so we hope that to have those voices on too and bring a lot of different perspectives to this.
and it's not just cycling and running,
Yeah.
it could be, snowboarding, it could be, weightlifting. There's so many different athletes
Uh,
out there doing just some awesome things. And we're hoping that we can get some folks on to chat with us and maybe inspire people to do what they're doing too.
yeah.
We always recommend talking to your own doctor about what's right for you and what
Yeah.
you can do.
Or
And
talk
I
to a
recommend,
nutritionist or talk to a
yeah,
nutritionist or a coach or a trainer for all the things we talk about. There are professional people who have the knowledge.
absolutely, absolutely. And then don't forget to follow us on social media. So, Justine, you're at Run with MS. I'm at The Foggy Cyclist. And then we're at adaptive_limits. So we'll have all this info in the show notes, but we're hoping some folks follow along and that
Yeah.
this is helpful for people. Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.